Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful July 27th, 2020. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we had the president walking around quoting O'Shea Jackson. You might know him as Ice Cube, talk about 99, baby, 99. 99 days until the election, Charlton. And, the world will decide what we want to be after that point. And I want to thank the frontline healthcare workers once again. I know your struggles are hard every day, but you keep on chugging. The nurses, doctors, and first responders fighting through this horrific pandemic.
And doing a fantastic job. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Also a fleet of Cadillac cars. And all around the world, just like POTUS was counting, you can say Big C Sports Podcast on Google, our Alexa, our Spotify, so many apps, and you'll hear our show come up. You'll also hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. I love saying the universe, and I love pausing, but I never want to pause, Big C. On our Veterans Crisis Hotline, they are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, we lose a horrific number of veterans every day to suicide. Some 22 veterans, Charlton, are succumbing to this horrific disease, and there seems to be no end in sight, just like COVID-19. Our veterans go out and serve this country admirably, Charlton, but our country doesn't serve our veterans when they return home, and we need to find a way to stem the tide of suicide. And it has drifted off into everyday society, Charlton. So many of our young people here in America commit suicide every day. But the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, that we give out is one of those ways, hopefully, to slow it down, if not prevent it. And if you think you see somebody in crisis, whether it's a veteran, whether it's a youth, don't hesitate in giving out that National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton.
That number really helps. It's 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can definitely get people some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV, home of the San Francisco Giants. You can follow us on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the 2-2 San Francisco Giants. They came back on the Dodgers down south of Chavez Ravine. Just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams do it. You can watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get some opportunities there. Big C, I want to start out today's show talking about John Lewis. I know a lot of times people want to put sports and politics in a different universe, Big C. But I saw on a program where John Lewis, U.S. Representative John Lewis, he had actually had a call with Roland Martin, and Colin Kaepernick had called in. And when I saw that conversation, it really touched on something that I know we've known all of our lifetimes, is that sports and politics, yes, it mixes, but what's even more important is the respect that our younger generation has for the older generation, and they have the same dreams and goals. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, respect is something, Charlton, that people have until it's turned against them. You know, to have respect for somebody is to have knowledge about what this person stands for and what this person does. And you think about the sacrifices that Lewis has made, the sacrifices that Kaepernick has made. You know, both of these men had similar causes in mind, Charlton, the need of others beyond themselves. And that's what a lot of society in the world forgets about nowadays, that the need of others beyond yourself. And when you can understand that, you have a greater purpose in life.
Yeah, really, really do. And I think sometimes we can take for granted when we have not had to pave a road. We just drive down that road of freedom and voting that John Lewis was such a part of. And you had lawmakers that paid their respects today. The civil rights icon. It's, you know, from Georgia, Big C, where they still have a lot of obstruction, voter obstruction. And he's gonna lay in state at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. He's the first black lawmaker to lay in state at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, according to historians, Big C. And last year, the Representative Elijah Cummings made history as the first black lawmaker to lay in state at the U.S. Capitol, when his body lay in state at Statuary Hall. But you think about icons, Rosa Parks, and Dr. King, C.T. Vivian, so many people. They've already paved the road. They can't drive on it anymore. What's the key for the next generation having their vision of persistence and that no-give-up attitude against all odds? How do we capture what they have, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you have to vote. When you think about what the Supreme Court did back in 2016 was gut the Voting Rights Act in America, Charlton, where they stripped away a lot of the policies that the Voting Rights Act applauded people in America, Charlton. The Supreme Court took those things away, and John Lewis spent his last days fighting to get those things reinstalled. But what people have to do is vote, Charlton, to get those Voting Rights Acts back. You know, it's not just as simple as going to a poll and voting.
Yeah. Because
the Republicans and the Supreme Court has stripped away a lot of what was applied in the 1965 Voting Rights Bill.
Yeah, I know they've closed a lot of polling stations, and they haven't done it in white districts, though. For anyone that votes for any president, and you want to look at our congressmen and our senators, they haven't closed polling stations in white communities. It's a skin color thing. When I saw Senator Mitch McConnell have some words today, it felt like empty that he would even give words. But you can't read a man's heart. Maybe some good things will come, just like John Lewis. He faced a lot of bigotry, but he still went forward.
Those words from Mitch McConnell were disingenuous. That Voting Rights Act bill is sitting on his desk, Charlton. The Senate could pass it if Mitch McConnell said, let's do this. But he is not going to do that because that's gerrymandering, that's voter obstruction, it's closing voting polls, Charlton. It's making it very difficult for people of color to vote. So the words of Mitch McConnell today, Charlton, were very disingenuous when you listen to him, because he could change the face of America by passing that voting rights bill.
I want to, and again, just like John Lewis, he stood in opposition. It's just hard for me to imagine people not wanting liberty and justice for everybody. It's hard to imagine that, even though I know it's real. But there's something in history that has shown me one thing, if not many things, and that's the past does not equal the future. And going forward in life, I know everything that happens in law, it takes lawyers, it takes lawmakers to sign. We can march, we can beat on our chest, we can sound out on our trumpets, but until someone's going to put ink to pen, and that's lawmakers making it happen. And I hope and pray that we keep going forward, Big C, that the lawmakers that will have people have a change of heart and a change of law in their position in life. That's my hope anyway, Big C. I noticed just like with Senator John McCain, POTUS didn't have the decency to even show up. I know that we shouldn't expect anything more But what kind of a message does that send to our country that you won't even stand there when a civil rights leader is being laid to rest, and you don't even have the decency to show up and offer condolences? Big C, your thoughts?
The message that it sends to the United States, Charlton, is the same message that he's been sending to the United States for the last 3.5 years. Separation and white power. That's what he's been sending to the United States, is that I don't respect people of color and I don't want to, interact with them. You look at my cabinet, it's not built with people of color. I have fought people of color ever since I have been president of the United States. I have ostracized against people of color. I've put embargoes on people of color. And I am not going to recognize a man of color when it comes to paying respect.
Yeah, it's a shame, but that's part of being an American, Big C, land of the free, home of the brave. One more thing I want to bring up on U.S. Representative John Lewis. I am proud that there were men who did not walk around with their head in the sand, and even though they had great hills to climb, they climbed them. Great battles to fight, they fought them. And I appreciate having the fact that in my lifetime, I was able to know him. I was a young boy when Dr. King's life came to an end, and Malcolm X and so many other great leaders of our past. But I was able to see some of the work of John Lewis, and I'm very proud. It emboldens me to know you just go forward no matter what. I want to just make this one stand kind of an option play to Colin Kaepernick. For people that criticize Colin, and for whatever their reason may be, ignorance for the most part, when he had the praise of U.S. Representative John Lewis, and he told Colin that you got to go forward, and I appreciate you, I respect you, I love you for what you're doing, because if the people who want justice don't do it, then it will never happen, and that maybe Black Lives Matter can't measure up to that. But at least is a start. Everything starts with a start in a conversation, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the meaning of John Lewis, and I'm not one to be able to utilize this man, Charlton, because of his greatness, and the words that he has spoken over the decades here in the United States to many people beyond just Colin Kaepernick, standing up for the things that he stood up for, fighting for the causes that he believed in, risking his life in faith, Charlton, in front of the world.
Yeah.
And so as you think about all of what John Lewis embodied as an individual, as a leader, as a believer, it pales to anything else that anybody else can come up with, Charlton. They can't stand close to him. He's the last member of the March on Washington that spoke, Charlton. There's nobody left alive now. And so that legacy cannot be afforded to pass with him. It has to stay strong, and that's what people need to build on. The understanding of what Negro people have fought for in America for the past 100 years and really the past 400 years.
Yeah.
We recognize what we saw on television and on newsreels, Charlton, thinking that was the beginning. It was not even close to the beginning. They picked up the trail from what other Negro leaders had done prior to them, Charlton. That's where they learned from. They didn't just get that on their own. It wasn't a vision that came in their mind. But we've had Negro leaders forever. They just were never seen on television lead this fight to try to gain equality and prosperity for Negroes in America. And it's still today, Charlton, with him sitting in the Capitol, his body, there, to being the first representative to lay in state and first Negro representative to lay in state. The fight still has as much distance to go as it did when he started. When you think about the obstruction and the resistance from white society in America, and you cannot say it does not exist. Otherwise, it'd be liberty and justice for all. But there is a side that does not want liberty and justice for all. Negro people have believed that saying that there would be liberty and justice for all. But you also have a white resistance in society saying, no, that's not part of what the Constitution was written for.
Yeah, I think when I hear what they were saying to each other I just caught part of a program this morning I did not know, but Roland Martin want to give him credit for putting that together. I also, in the sports world, again, thoughts and prayers are not enough for John Lewis and his family. I just want to say, may God accept you in the universe. Everything your heart desires. Really, really hope that for his loved ones, Big C. And I want to just mention what he talked about. Sometimes people get too much praise. There's a football coach, retired football coach by the name of Mike Ditka. He's one of the sorriest personalities on television. He's one of the sorriest personalities that ever get a job in television. And he's so dumb, he's still saying, if you take a knee, get the hell out of our country. I hope that Mike Ditka gets the hell out of our country. Here's a guy who was a draft dodger, who ran away from serving this country. And he coached the Chicago Bears, and he got too much credit for the Bears winning. He was a sorry individual as a coach, and he's a sorry individual as a person. And for those of you who agree with Mike Ditka, he got a letter from a U.S. Marine, a former U.S. Marine, United States Marine. Mansour Sham is one of the people who doesn't disagree with what Colin Kaepernick does and stands for. And he made it clear that to Mike Ditka's comments, that he's a U.S. Marine. And unlike Mike Ditka, who ran, he served this country with his life. And he's never felt it in his place to tell anyone to get the hell out of this country. Let that sink in for you, draft dodger Mike Ditka. Sorry person, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, the only people you ever hear make those statements are white people, okay? You don't hear people of color making that statement. And when you think about what Negroes have provided for so many people in this country, Charlton, you think about we got 99 days until the voting process. You realize on the voting ballot, Charlton, only the Negroes are ostracized. If you're Asian and you send it in on the census, they will send a ballot back to you in your native language.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to utilize English. You do that in Spanish also, Charlton. But you think about the Negroes are the only people in America, Charlton, that don't get that option. And yet we are the ones who created the Voting Rights Act in 1965.
Yeah.
So when you think about how many people have benefited, how many cultures have benefited from what the Negroes provided in America, whether you're Indian, Charlton, from across the seas, or any other culture, you can have something put in your native tongue because of what the Negroes fought for you to have.
Yeah.
But the Negroes had their voting rights gutted.
Yeah. And I hope, I don't know what network gives Mike Ditka a job, but birds of a feather flock together. I mean, they flock together. He's just a sorry individual of a person. The late Dave Duerson said the same thing about him. Just a sorry individual. Major League Baseball, Big C, Florida Marlins, they've canceled their home opener tonight versus the Baltimore Orioles. As far as I know at this time, the Marlins have had at least 14 team members test positive for COVID-19, and 12 of those are players, even though POTUS said it was a hoax. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about basketball shut down after one positive test when Rudy Gobert tested positive. They shut down all of the sports world behind that. And here it is, the Florida Marlins coming up with 14 team personnel that have tested positive after playing a series in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But think about this. Prior to going to Philadelphia and playing, Charlton, they started in Atlanta, which is one of the hottest spiking states in the United States as far as the rise of coronavirus. So after they left Atlanta, they went to Philadelphia, and they've come up with 14 individuals that have tested positive for COVID-19. Now, you got to be realistic. It just didn't start in Philadelphia. So maybe this came out of Atlanta, that hot spiking state, where they went around and just, went to various places while they were in town. Baseball players, they're traveling on the same team bus. They're staying in the same team hotel. They're traveling on the same team plane. They're in the same team locker room. So this may be a multi-city pandemic that we're looking at. I would not be surprised if the next team that pops up in Atlanta has the same problem. And I know with the Marlins having to cancel their home opening, there can't be a major league team wanting to go into that locker room in Philadelphia and probably even in Atlanta.
Yeah.
After this breakout.
Yeah, and when you think about why would you feel comfortable going into the same clubhouse, same shower, same bench area, same locker rooms, maybe the same hotels? NBA basketball, even though they're going to have some people come up and they're going to tell people about it eventually, but they're at least trying to confine people that go outside of the bubble and come back in. But baseball can't do that. It's like they're just willing to take chances. And, that's what life is sometimes. You take chances, but it's easier to take chances with the health of somebody else than the health of your own. As you mentioned, that New York Yankees and Philadelphia Phillies game has been postponed because of the outbreak of COVID-19, and that's in Philadelphia's home park. So when you postpone something, you just put it on pause. And they're going to put it on pause for what reason, I don't know. But I know the commissioner, Manfred's never going to play in a Major League Baseball stadium. Neither will any of the owners that own these ball clubs go there and to show that they're there with their player. Just like Mike Ditka, he was a draft dodger. He ran when he had the chance to put his life on the line to defend this country, and now he's being called out by former Marines. Call that Marine and tell that Marine to get the hell out of the country that he defended for your dumb butt. Your thoughts on Philadelphia postponing as opposed to canceling the game, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, postpone is an open word, but what I'm concerned about is what is going to be the tipping point in sports as we look at it. We know that baseball, they had this 113-page manual about the do's and don'ts on the restart of the season, that you weren't supposed to high five, you weren't supposed to spit, you weren't supposed to chew sunflower seeds in the dugout, Charlton. And all the things that they talked about that you weren't supposed to be doing in baseball, these are the things that are being done. The high five in Charlton that players do with each other. The hugging and celebrations, Charlton. The dog piling, after winning the game on a walk-off. We've seen all these things occur. Now, baseball is the only sport that's out there that's a team sport that practices social distancing, realistically, other than when you're at bat, at home plate. So as we're talking about baseball and all of a sudden, you're getting a dozen people testing positive after one event in a baseball activity. What the hell is going to happen with football when you got everybody, when you're down in the trenches and you're face to face and you're snorting and you're spitting and you're sneezing on each other, and you're making body contact when you're passing sweat and other fluids back and forth. How in the hell are you going to keep football players safe? And you can't even think about putting them in a bubble because that balloon broke before they get in.
I've heard one time this lady that I knew, she said she was so cool she could walk through rain and not get wet, Big C. And maybe she went on to own a professional sports team because a lot of these guys are thinking they can walk through rain and not get wet. Speaking of getting wet, Cincinnati Reds, Big C, there's 3 players on the injured list, and they're all also suffering from symptoms of COVID-19, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that just shows the spread of it, Charlton, that it's all around. That wherever you go, wherever you look, you potentially are going to get COVID-19 in dealing with sports. And I know the NBA has said they have nobody testing positive for COVID-19. But, that's just a momentary thing. Once they get out there and get to going, it's going to flare up. You just can't keep, human beings safe from this pandemic that's going on. And the Cincinnati Reds, 3 players. You got the Marlins with 14 personnel. You got the Reds with 3 personnel, plus dozens of others around the major league, Charlton. How far are they going to push this pandemic, to have somebody in a serious health crisis?
Well, they always, it's easy to see how long someone else can hold their breath underwater as opposed to the person themselves. Even on a national level, maybe there's a reason that POTUS did not pay respects to John Lewis, even though it's probably no reason. But his national security advisor by the name of Robert, I refuse to wear a mask, O'Brien, also tests positive for COVID-19. And if you're the president's security advisor, and then POTUS said he hadn't seen him in a couple of days, what kind of security do you provide for someone that you don't see every day, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, your national security advisor is someone there with your morning briefings, Charlton, from the security departments of the United States. They're part of that. But that he just told you he does not read, because he doesn't need his national security advisor around.
Wow.
He knows everything that goes on in the world. But, Charlton, as you look at the president making his turn about face here on COVID-19, acting like he's concerned about people, but all he can do is read from the notes that he has on the desk and he has a hard time keeping track of those. Maybe they should put him in a larger font for him.
Yeah.
And because he can't read normal stuff.
Yeah.
But to say to the American public that you're concerned about them, when you told them just the other day, they're going to have to learn to live with it. And it's going to get even worse because he said it was a hoax.
Yeah.
If he had said that, Charlton, 4 months ago and got on top of this about wearing masks, protecting the public, instead of saying that this was a Democratic hoax to hurt his re-election possibility, you got to realize, Charlton, in the last 4 months, we've had 147,000 Americans die. 147,000 Americans die in 4 months. And they want to equate that to, well, we get the flu every year. No, we don't get 147,000 Americans dying during flu season, and it's rising, Charlton, and there's no end in sight. They can talk about vaccines and programs where they're going to do test series. Charlton, there's no vaccine out right now that even what they run tests on by the FDA that's going to stop what's going on right now with COVID-19.
Yeah, I mean, there's always scientific research, Big C, and I will never say never. That's a word I learned not to use a long time ago, because there is some report that the Fauci research, they hope to have at least 15,000 volunteers enrolled by the end of the week for a vaccine trial. We know there's going to be some type of treatment, just like they treat high blood pressure. They treat a lot of things that some people said, oh, they're never going to treat high blood pressure. They're never going to treat diabetes. They're never going to treat whatever. And science can treat a lot of things. And so that's where a lot of hope comes from those scientists who don't think about what the outside world thinks about. I just believe that it's going to come. In the meantime, people can still social distance and stay better, even though...
Answer this question for me, Charlton. How many diseases have been eliminated in the 20th century?
Well, I'm not a scientist, and I haven't counted that many, but I do know for everyone that wasn't...
Smallpox.
How many?
Smallpox.
Okay, but there's treatments also. HIV doesn't have a cure, but people can live forever on HIV now.
But what I'm saying, how many have been eliminated? Smallpox. You can have things, Charlton, that may prolong life for a little bit, but what I'm saying, how many treatments have been, how many diseases has been eliminated? That's smallpox. That's it. I mean, the common flu that comes around every day. Think about how long they've been fighting the common flu, and both of these things have similarities about each other, Charlton, that represent each other. But the common flu has been around, I know, your entire lifetime, because it's been around my entire lifetime, and I'm about 3 or 4 days older than you.
Well,
So when you think about that, Charlton, and I know they have test studies and all this, and I'm not saying that things can't be created to eliminate something, but I'm just saying, in reality, and sometimes you have to take a reality perspective in life when you're looking at things. The common flu has never been captured, and this has a lot of the similarities of it.
yeah, but that's a macabre way of looking at things. There are so many Americans that fight for health care so they can get their medicine, Big C. And for every scientist that's ever found a way to treat people, the reason they take the medicine that they have anyway, if they have the attitude, we're never going to find a way to solve this. We're never going to have a medication that helps people live longer. We're never going to come up with a cure that solves diseases. We're never going to find a way to have surgeries to help people live longer. If never was the way scientists thought, you're right, all of us would have died at 30, but never doesn't exist in the mind of a scientist. That's why I even want to stand with Dr. Fauci when he says that he believes they will have some type of trial vaccine by the end of this week, and hopefully in 2021, a treatment for it, the same way I'm on high blood pressure medication. Without the blood pressure medication, I may have been gone a long time ago. But I'm so glad I didn't have a scientist that said, we'll never treat high blood pressure. I'm always going to opt with the side of the scientist, Big C. If not, we may as well stop taking whatever medication we're on. And I believe they're going to find a cure. We're going to take what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about what's going on in the sports world. And we'll be back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on so many apps, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. And just the thing that I've always heard, even when I heard John Lewis speak, oftentimes there's two kind of people, Big C, and that's why they say even when you go to a doctor, you get a second opinion. The thing that science is not like the mainstream. They do work that's scientific. That's why almost every older person is on some kind of medication, because science does work. I want to take something to the idea. We talked about Major League Baseball postponing 2 games due to COVID-19. And again, they postponed it because they're waiting for whatever they're waiting for. I don't know. But I know if anything, they have the best access to medicine and healthcare and science. And it really is something just like John Lewis with the Voting Rights Act. There are people that say, you'll never have the right to vote. They didn't believe those words, Big C. It will come through, but they're canceling more games. Should they just put a postpone on everything and wait, just like the Ivy League did with sports, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that would be the natural thing to do, is just postpone all sports. I've been an advocate for that ever since they talked about bringing the games back. I'm like, at what cost? You're talking about the cost of human life. The long-term physical effects from having COVID-19, Charlton, are not just that you survived the COVID-19, Charlton. There's long-term physical ailments that's going to bother people for years, and they don't know exactly how long it's going to be. You might seem totally healthy, but everybody that I've known that have gotten it, Charlton, former athletes, just like myself, there's long-term effects from it. You're just not the same person once you come out of it months later.
Yeah, there's still guys that test positive. Russell Westbrook, he's down there in the bubble. There's a guy that played youth, Rudy Gobert, he's in the bubble. There's a lot of players that are tested positive. Everything bothers people in a different way. That's why they have different prescriptions for different people, Big C. But it's a from what I hear also, my doctor was saying, is based on blood type. Some is just based on attitude. Everything's based on your outlook on life and how you respond to it. Some people die because of fear. They've even had studies on that. College football is set to start. It's amazing. College football, as they're canceling and postponing Major League Baseball games where guys make money, college football is set to start in, I think it's less than about 5 weeks now. But for the second time in 1 week, a Big Ten school is being quarantined for 2 weeks, and that's the University of Rutgers over on the East Coast. And they're being quarantined. It's their entire football team, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, last week we had Michigan State that was quarantined, Charlton, for 2 weeks. Now you're looking at Rutgers. We're looking at the broad scope of the Big Ten Conference. We talk about the state of New Jersey and the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
We know that New Jersey had been a hotbed several months ago, right adjacent to New York as far as COVID-19. But now you're talking about younger individuals, Charlton. When you talk about Michigan State, you're talking about Rutgers. You're not talking about older people, senior citizens. You're talking about young men. You're not talking about guys playing professional ball. And so the effect on these individuals, as we talked about earlier, you cannot practice social distancing playing football.
Yeah.
So the minute you get one individual within an organization testing positive, Charlton, you can isolate him, but how many people did he come in contact with during that practice session? So when you talk about contact tracing, you got to test everybody. You got to isolate everybody on the team. You look at a college football team, you're talking about 100-plus players.
Yeah.
And so how can you be safe? How can you keep these individuals safe?
Yeah, and when the college players and the hormones start jumping around, and they're going to see somebody that looks good to them, and they're going to say, oh, you know what, sorry, I can't meet you because I got a social distance from you. With 3 days until the start of the NBA basketball season, it's just crazy how you have a team in Florida, of all places. Why would it be the Miami Marlins, Big C? Why would it be one of Florida's Major League Baseball teams? And they got the NBA bubble not far from it in the same state. 3 days until the start of NBA season. Does Major League Baseball spike in COVID-19 cases create a concern of the NBA? And they must be having their eyes closed on it, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you got 2 NHL teams down in Florida, Charlton. You got 3 NFL teams in Florida. You got 2 NBA teams down there. And so as you look at this, with the bubble being down there, Charlton, how do you keep the state safe? When you've had record highs for the last 10 days in positive cases of COVID-19, And we've seen several players that have exited the bubble down in Orlando and coming back.
Yeah.
So, it's just a spectacle to me. It's at all costs when you think about what this is all about. You got owners not wanting to miss a dollar. I understand players want to get paid also.
Yeah.
But, the almighty dollar, people will sell their souls. OJ said that years ago. Money, Money, Money was a song that they had. What they will do for, money. And that's just what COVID-19 has come down to.
Yeah, it's always going to be a matter of that, Big C. This also is if there's still some football leagues that are waiting. They're waiting for what? I don't know. They're waiting for some more information to come out in what's called the Missouri Valley and the Pioneer League. They're on hold. They're on the pause right now. No news is good news, according to Missouri Valley and Pioneer Valley Conference, the premier FCS conferences, including national champion North Dakota State, the Bison. They're still trying to wait until they don't see what they're seeing, which is science saying maybe for these young people, we should put people on pause. When the president's national security advisor tests positive for COVID-19, yet POTUS is saying everybody go back to school except for his own son, and then some of these college kids and the administrators are not going to play football. They're going to go out and watch and hope that nothing happens to these kids the way it happened at Rutgers. Clemson went through it, Big C, Texas A&M went through it, Alabama went through it, but they don't tell you after that 2 weeks what's happening. They say, hey, they waited 2 weeks, now they're cleared. Are they not testing again? Are they making sure they're healthy? They're just so focused on playing a football game, they don't even have a follow-up visit to tell not that the media needs to know anything because they're going to lie to us anyway. But your thoughts on the Pioneer Valley and the Missouri Valley Conference saying, we don't know enough yet to do what the Ivy League has done, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's the thing that I don't understand, Charlton. You can quarantine these players. How do you quarantine them on a college campus or even at home? Where are you quarantining them at? And then once they come out of this quarantine, what type of social activities are they going to have other than practice, Charlton?
Yep.
Are they going to go to class? Are they going to go to the dining commons, Charlton? Are they going to go to the school library? What are they going to do after they stop quarantining them? So that has me perplexed. And you talked about North Dakota State. They won so many national championships.
They cheat.
They play in a dome stadium,
Yeah.
Charlton, so that'd be like one of the president's rallies.
Yeah.
But their dome stadium is packed otherwise.
Yeah.
So you get all these people in a confined air stadium that you're going to have 20,000 people inside of there cheering, sweating, spitting, going on back and forth, clapping, coughing on each other.
Yep.
Seat to seat in this stadium. So you're going to infect the whole state of North Dakota because when they have a home game, everybody leaves their doors unlocked because nobody's left in town.
Yeah.
So as we look at this, everybody's being careless. It's almost like walking around with a mat in a dry hayfield, Charlton, saying, well, I can keep striking them and dropping them, and if it doesn't catch
Yeah.
all of a sudden,
Yeah. Try it
it'll be
again.
okay. But that smoldering match
Yeah.
later on that all of a sudden makes this blaze, and all of a sudden you're burning up all the product
Yeah.
that you have out there in the field. That's what I feel right now, Charlton, that everybody's playing with a book of matches in a dry hayfield.
You remind me of something I did. It was really stupid. I think I was about 12 years old when I did this. It was the 4th of July, so everybody's doing the fireworks, shooting off fireworks and sparklers, and people had a good time. So it was July 5th, the day after the 4th of July. I was walking outside of my mom's house, and by the road, there was a firecracker, and it looked like it was half burned. So me being a bright 12-year-old, I decided, hey, I'm going to pick this firecracker up. Now, it was the day after 4th of July. I picked that thing up, and as Lord would have it, it popped in my hand, Big C. It's like, pow! In my hand, and I'll never forget how my hand swelled. I thought my hand was going to fall off. It hurt that much, Big C. And I think a lot of times with this COVID thing, when people test positive and then they wait the 2 weeks, it's like me with that firecracker. Oh, maybe all the damage is done. They pick it up and then pow! Maybe we should cancel the season. You think they're going to have that happen, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's going to come down to that eventually, Charlton, that we're going to have a salient moment here in America that people are going to say, we've just had too many people get sick. And what's the overall risk? The long-term health effects of these individuals, and that's what it's going to have to come down to. I know everybody's talking about, well, it's great to have sports back, but realistically, how many people are watching these baseball games, Charlton, on television with nobody in the stands? It seems like practice.
Yeah.
It seems like little pickup games that you have. There's no emotion involved in the game. I've looked for an inning or two at a couple different games, and it's like I changed the channel. I'd rather watch the news.
Yeah.
At least I'm getting some information. I'm getting some insight, but just to sit there and see an analyst and a play-by-play guy try to talk about something that's not occurring, to me, that's not realistic. And how do you make it happen in football? When the NBA starts in 3 days, Charlton, those are going to be like pickup games that are being played.
Yeah.
And that's all it's going to seem like, a pickup game. It's not going to seem like a real game. It's just 5-on-5. And everybody grew up with skins and shirts. And that's what it's going to be, except everybody's going to have a full uniform on.
Yeah.
I don't see any excitement in it. As much as you want to talk about the greatest players in the universe playing basketball, it's still just pickup games that they're playing.
Yeah, it's pickup play. Now, I want to ask you, I know that you Southern guys, you like your chicken wings. To me, it's a double entendre when you take a grown man in the peak in the peak of his physical life, Big Z. I know he said he wanted to go to someone's service, and of course, thoughts and prayers with that. But also, and maybe I'm naive, but he said he had to go get some chicken wings from a strip club, or the strip club. He went to a strip club and they were serving chicken wings, or he went to get chicken wings and the strip club showed up. Something about stripping and chicken wings. Was he looking for chicken wings to eat, or some chicken wings for a little fun, Big Z? That makes sense to you, Big Z? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we have a lot of people in American society that want to act like they've never seen any adult entertainment in their lives.
Yep.
But adult entertainment, it's one of the biggest businesses in the United States.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, when you go to a strip club and the prices that they charge in a strip club, they got to have some damn good food inside, and which they do.
Yeah.
I've dealt with them for decades, Charlton. It was one of the places we would go after practice because traffic would be bad, but they always had great food in there, Charlton.
Yeah.
They have full-service restaurants in most of these high-end strip clubs.
Yeah.
And you got to think about Lou Williams going to this strip club in Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And not only that, the wings that he went to get are named after him. They're the Lou Williams wings. Spicy blue cheese wings.
Yeah.
So, that's how much he does going, to this particular strip club.
Yeah.
And so as you think about that, players do this all the time. All professional athletes, Charlton. I'm going to say 60% of them frequent these establishments. Not only are they high-end, they're not, hole-in-the-wall places and stuff.
Yeah.
They're high-end places, and they can go there and have some solitude. People are not going to bother them. There's a lot of security in these places.
Yeah.
And you can sit down and have a meal.
Yeah.
So, when you go out and poll professional athletes, I'm going to guarantee you 60% of them have gone to these adult establishments.
Yeah. Even Donald Trump, he spent $150,000 for some chicken wings. Oh, I'm sorry, $135,000. He got the cheap kind. His $135,000. That makes sense to you, Big Z?
Well, but the thing is, they have curbside pickup at the Williams place.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go in and interact if you don't want to. And you think about the time that he was at the club.
Yeah.
6 o'clock. So it really hadn't gotten busy in the club during that time. So I understand his situation, that he wanted to go get these particular wings from this particular club.
Yeah.
Because he's addicted to them. And all during the off season, this is where he gets his wings from.
Yeah. Well, I heard we were talking to a couple of friends of mine about this, and this one lady, she had told me that she and her husband were having a moment. And, adults have moments, Big C. So they were having a moment. And so she said to him, will you do something for me? And she whispered into his ear what she wanted. And he said, well, I'm not really comfortable doing that, Big C. And she said, well, my old boyfriend, he did it all the time. And so just as people start wondering, well, what did the old boyfriend do that the husband won't do all the time? All she wanted to do was pray before they ate chicken wings, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, like I said, chicken wings, and you think about the price of chicken wings that they have in this place.
Yeah.
They're not your run-of-the-mill chicken wings. They have a nice, tab on them and everything. But You know, the experience, a lot of times people don't understand. When you go out to have a great meal, you appreciate the ambience that the restaurant may hold that, you know, makes the meal even better. And that's what Lou was looking at, was the ambience of the restaurant.
Yeah, the ambience of the restaurant is always important, Big C, but it's all fair and love and war. NBA and WNBA New Jersey Nets guard. You look at about Kyrie Irving and what kind of a person he is. Some people say he has too much ego. Who doesn't have ego? But he's making sure that players who want to sit out in the WNBA do not have to worry, Big C, about a paycheck. The Brooklyn Nets star, really, I love the conscientiousness of men who can, like the John Lewis spirit. He said he's going to be setting aside $1.5 million for those players who decide to sit out of the season because of COVID-19 or other social justice issues. And I really appreciate someone like Kyrie. They don't have to make this known. In fact, what a lot of guys do, no one ever knows, but that's a very good gesture, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, Charlton, it's a marvelous gesture between the two sports, the WNBA and the NBA, is that a superstar is being prescient enough to say, I make enough money.
Yeah.
And I understand the plight of these women in health and social issues as far as not wanting to go out and participate in this season, Charlton. And I'm going to set aside these monies to help them out. If they so wish to bypass the sport this year, Charlton, and work on what's a greater cause for them, then they won't have to worry about it financially. And this is what more people need to do, Charlton, those who have. When people are giving up what they would earn, Charlton, because of these issues.
Yep.
You know, you think about our United States Senate, and they don't think about this. You know, I was listening to your buddy Lindsey Graham today.
Oh, wow.
And he said if Americans were to get that $600 extension once again in phase 4 of this coronavirus relief, it would be a waste of money.
Really?
He is saying that it's a waste of money to give money to the needy people in America who are struggling, who cannot go to work, who cannot pay their bills, who are facing eviction, who can't pay their utilities, that it's a waste of money to give people to him. I don't see him at any point giving up his $200,000 a year salary.
Oh, no.
Plus all the fringe benefits he gets from being in the United States Senate.
And you know he loves chicken wings, too, if you understand my drift, Big Z. They all love chicken wings. But Kyrie Irving, great thing. The funds will come from the KAI Empowerment Initiative that Irving launched Monday, Big C. It will also provide players with financial literacy program created by UBS. I know a lot of people think $1.5 million, that's a lot of money. And I believe the top annual salary is a little more than $200,000 with WNBA players. There are guys that make more in one game than top WNBA players make in a whole season. It's always a nice gesture. But I'm going to ask you a stupid thought, and not that it's stupid, but I know money's money. How do we justify, I guess it's supply and demand, but women get TV contracts too. So maybe the men and the women who run TV, organizations that broadcast and the sponsors, that they can only find about $200,000 for the top salary for WNBA players. That's outside of any type of sponsorship. How do they justify when some guys can make that in a game or at least a week, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, because the NBA controls prime time. The NBA has its own network. That is the reason why. When you think about the monies that these professional leagues make, Charlton, it comes from exposure.
Yeah.
When you think about the NFL took Sunday away from God, that people get out of church early so they can get home or to the stadium and watch the game.
Yeah.
That's the way that the WNBA is versus the NBA, Charlton. When you think about the NBA comes on prime time every night and the weekends, it controls that when the NFL is not around.
Yeah.
The NBA is a worldwide market, and so this is what it has over the WNBA. When you think about the WNBA last year, Charlton, and people say, well, how could you get the ratings and visibility up?
Yeah.
Last year, ABC did 3 games in prime time, had the greatest ratings ever for WNBA broadcast.
Yeah.
That's what's wrong with the WNBA. The networks have not felt that it was viable enough to put it on prime time where more people can view it. Anything that you put on prime time, people will view. You've watched baseball with nobody in the stands.
Yeah.
They viewed it. So the WNBA has to be able to find that exposure. You think about the XFL before it folded with COVID-19.
Yeah.
It was on and people watched it. it is very hard to find a WNBA game. I know last year when we were looking at the playoffs,
Yep.
and it was on some streaming channel.
Yeah.
That was the only way that you could find a WNBA game. So as long as it's just on streaming channels, Charlton, that revenue will never jump up. It has to get on primetime network television.
In the final 10 minutes, WNBA Seattle Storm and the New York Liberty players walked off the court before the national anthem to the dismay of Mike Ditka, who's just is ignorant of a person, season opener, because they're trying to bring attention to social justice, police reform, how to get living wages. There's so many things. They're trying to make sure that women can feel safe in life, and they stay away from draconian men like Mike Ditka. Big C, your thoughts on the gesture they made, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it was a pretty powerful move before the opening night of the WNBA season that both teams, jointly walked off of the floor and back into the locker room prior to the playing of the national anthem. And people have to find the ways that they want to do this. I know the Pittsburgh Steelers did that in a game in Jacksonville several years ago, Charlton, 4 years ago, where the team stayed in the locker room and one player just stood in the tunnel for the national anthem. But you have to have unity if you want to, bring attention to your cause.
Yeah, and I appreciate what women and men are doing. It's just so important. Everyone has a right. If you didn't serve this country, get the hell out of telling people to get out. What a joke. Mike Dick is just a sorry individual, Big C. NFL football, Minnesota Vikings head trainer and his entire family tested positive for COVID-19, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this lets the NFL know just how close they are to having COVID-19 running rampant in their training camps, Charlton, as they open up this week, is that you got head trainers for the Minnesota Vikings and his whole entire family testing positive for COVID-19, Charlton. We only know who tests positive because they tell us who tests positive.
That's right.
Think about the individual who is going to be so selfish to say, I'm not positive because I want to play.
True.
I want to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
I want to practice. I want to be at the facility. That's going to happen. And you think about the turnaround now on tests, Charlton, where there's people waiting 7-8 days to get the turnaround on their test.
Yeah.
So you go in and get tested, and you have to wait a week to get the test results back.
Yep.
Think about how many people you're going to come in contact with.
Yeah. It's a matter of we got to get that help, Big C. I'm glad I got my blood pressure medication. I used to think I was going to pray my way to health, but science and medicine has helped me a lot, Big C. NFL news, Drew Brees and his wife donated, I think since March, about $10 million to underserved communities in Louisiana to help with medical costs. That's a great thing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it is. Drew Brees has had an awakening. After his criticism of the stance against Colin Kaepernick about social justice and social reform and equality in America, Charlton, he's come to this understanding that, he's been very privileged. He's got that white skin privilege, that he's never had to worry about those things. He's made enough money in life, and he has generational wealth for his children, that they don't have to worry about that. But as he gets out and he drives around the state of New Orleans, Charlton, and actually see the plight of many people in that state, Charlton, of Louisiana, that he's now gotten an awakening and an understanding. Sometimes you don't know something bitter until you taste it. And then all of a sudden it's, damn, this don't taste as good as I thought it would. And that's what he's seeing now, Charlton, that he's getting out of the establishment that he's been in of safety and the people that, are in his social and economic world and going out and seeing reality. Saying, hey, these people struggle every day just for basic necessity needs. He sees the oppression of the police and politics, Charlton, going on now. And sometimes somebody's got to walk up and slap you in the face. Hopefully not too damn hard.
Not too hard.
Sometimes somebody's got to do that.
If somebody,
and that's what is happening with Drew Brees.
Yeah, if somebody grab another man's chicken wings, he about to get slapped or something, Big C. It's just not a good thing to do. I think about Drew Brees and what he's done and his first stance. And I ask any white American, especially guys like Mike Ditka, them guys, when I saw the images of the Edmund Pettus Bridge and John Lewis marching and being beaten up by police officers, these were law enforcement that beat these guys up, black men and women, so they could vote just like white people could vote, so they could have the right to exercise their American freedoms, just like white Americans, like people like Dick. Guys like Ditka should have been the ones getting beaten up over the head. Man, New York Jets, they trade all-pro safety Jerome Adams, Big C, to the Seattle Seahawks for a second round and a third round draft pick starting in 2021. Who do you think got the better end of the trade, the Seahawks or the Jets, Big C?
Well, Charleston, you got to think about the Seahawks getting the better end of the deal. You got a proven player, even though it's only one player, but he's NFL ready, all-pro safety. You know, they gave up 2 first-round draft picks and a third-round draft pick over the next 2 years, plus another safety in exchange. But we don't know what type of draft they're going to have next year, Charleston. We saw the mocked-up draft they had this year. We're not even sure that they're going to have a college football season next year.
Yeah.
So that draft pick may be mute, you know, if they don't have a college football season. And the Seattle Seahawks have a proven commodity in Jamal Adams at safety.
Yeah.
I know they need some help at other positions, but they have Jamal Adams, who's a proven commodity, and we don't know if we're going to have college football next year.
Yep, that's true. I mean, a lot of things are up in the air. I want to stick to the West Coast before we close out. San Francisco 49ers, they decide that they're going to do a restructuring of the contract with Raheem Mostert, who I think is one of the best running backs they've had since Roger Craig. The guy has breakaway speed, and he can just pick it up and lay it down. He's due to make about $2.6 million in base salary with $300,000 bonus this season. Of course, we don't even know if we're going to have football, Big C, but I think it's a very good gesture for them. They have running back Tevin Coleman also. He's set to be paid about $4.5 million. If they look back at their whole season, they had a dominant running game. You got to keep those running backs healthy. You got to feed them with money and not just an applaud on the back. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, I mean, you got to keep everybody healthy on a team. The offensive line has to stay intact. I mean, and they have running back by committee in San Francisco. The big step, you know, up this year is going to have to be a little better play from their quarterback. I mean, he was fantastic last year in getting them to the Super Bowl. I mean, under a lot of criticism that he didn't deserve, but Jimmy Garoppolo was in a position that 30 other quarterbacks would have loved to have been in last year.
Yeah, it's about playing football, and I know whether it's the SEC or the Pac-12, the ACC, the Big Ten, I know everybody in the world of sports. If you think you can't get along without sports, I don't see, and I haven't looked at it, but the baseball ratings, I think that was one of the lower ratings that I've seen according to the mothership when the Yankees were playing in the Washington Nationals, Big C, to open this season. And I still, even out here on the West Coast, the Dodgers and Giants, that's the biggest rivalry here on the West Coast. But people are not clinging to their TV sets to see, oh my God, I got to watch these two teams play. And do you think, and again, these guys make a lot of money. They get paid to go out and put themselves on the line. But college players are not getting paid, and then WNBA players, they're getting paid, but not a lot. At what point in time will there ever be, and it's probably not the right question to ask, but unanimity, Big C, where everyone will get together and talk about what's going to happen with sports, Big C, on all levels? Your thoughts?
No, Charleston, it will never be that point. Sports is individualism, whether you're looking at leagues, whether you're looking at conferences, whether you're looking at professional versus collegiate.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking the high school ranks, Charleston. It's about what the individuals in that area are trying to get.
Yeah.
And everything about sports is selfish. And so when you think where you have leagues where you have owners, you think about leagues where you have commissioners.
Yeah.
You think about leagues where it's just every man for himself. You know, this is where we are. There's no uniformity in sports.
Yeah, I think what I do appreciate about this show, Big C, that we do with Big C Sports, I see a lot of people do our style, and I'm not saying anything can't be copied, but I'm really proud of what we started about 5 years ago. And for anybody going through anything, you can always get a second opinion. Never, ever, 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 ever believe that you can't change things. A second opinion can change a lot of things, whether it's the right to vote, marching for the right to vote, the right to live where you want to live, to marry who you want to marry. You just need a few good people, a few good men and women who believe in changing things, and change can happen for the better, so always keep your hope alive. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He's known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how could you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, the biggest jostling in the sports universe will come 99 days from today. That's the day that we vote for the reestablishment of the government of the United States. And everybody needs to get on their jogging shoes, run to the poll, run to the post office, Charlton, get in that early ballot.
Yep.
Make sure you vote. Don't let this time go by in 2020. Once again, I want to say thank you to our frontline healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, first responders. I know you're tired with the struggle that we go on. You keep yourself safe. You keep yourself healthy. You do a marvelous job for the American public.
And keep doing a great job. You got to keep hope alive. Get out and vote every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child gone through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.